Shlama Amma Khubri Khay Mithithach. Greetings, welcome. We're doing Aramaic grammar explained in detail from Arayathinal's grammar of the Aramaic language, of the classic Syriac language, which is used by all Assyrian peoples, Church of the East, Assyrian Church of the East, and Syriac Orthodox. Please see the prior video under this name to get links to the book both in print and digital, and I recommend it in print if you're going to do it with me. So let's get into my second lesson, which is a presentation of lesson 5 in Arayathinal's grammar. So if you're looking at the print, that would be on page 58 of Arayathinal. As usual, I'm going to present the information there so you don't have to work through the chapter, and I don't recommend you actually work through the book the first time through, but let me take you through it and use it in order to have a reference, go look through the chapter as far as it interests you, but I'm trying to keep it condensed because there's too much in Arayathinal for a first introduction. So the word pronoun is chlap shma. Shma means name, and chlap means in the place of. So it's the in the place of the name, pronoun, right? Good translation. And chlap shma parsopaya would be a personal pronoun, a person being parsopa. And here I set this chart, and in the description there should be a link to my blog where I've made these available. And Arayathinal and about maybe half, maybe more than half of classical Syriac grammars use the order that's common in Indo-European languages: I, you, he, she. But I prefer something that fits Semitic languages more. Not that native Semitic grammarians use them, because they followed a Greek grammar in its outline. But Faxton, I believe, Morakawa, people who were specialists in Semitic languages follow this order, and it just really makes sense. I've never been able to think about a Semitic language starting from the first person. When we get to verbs, that will be very obvious why. So we begin with the third person masculine, or he, to the third person feminine, to the second person masculine, to the second feminine, and the first is common in pronouns for Syriac, as well as for nouns and the kind of noun that we call an adjective. And here we go, who. It's like the question word in English, who, except this means he. So who. There's a short form, u, that's used to connect. So if you want to say it is Paul, or Paul is, Paulus u. You would say Paul, and then you would just add that. And the only thing you're adding is u. If you want to say he is Paul, you go who Paulus u, or who u, which you turn into who you, who Paulus u, or who you Paulus. She is Tabitha. He, so that's she, Tabitha, he. Hitoitai. You could say you are a man. Gawra is man. At gawra, or at gawra u. So for the second masculine and the second feminine, for the word you, we can also use the endings that we use for he and she. I know that can be confusing. And then for the first common, meaning the word I, and that one, there's no common meaning, there's no difference between masculine and feminine, it's inna. And its short form is na. So inna, na. Inna Ephraim, I am Ephraim. Or inna na Ephraim. Inna na is a common construction. Usually, if you're going to say the word you and are, instead of saying like you Peter are, you are Peter, that's when you don't do atat. Instead you go at u, or you are Jane, you wouldn't go atat Jane, you would go at Jane e. And if something doesn't make sense, we'll refer back to this when we see it in our examples. This is more to introduce the chart. Now the plural version of the same. So what's the plural of he? It's them. The plural of she, it's them. The plural of you, it's y'all, or you, all. The plural of you, y'all, and of I is we. So I didn't repeat that because in English, this is already confusing enough. Hennon, he, zlamanun, nun, on, hennon. And like you had here, that form that is the pronoun proper, who, and then the short form that is a connector made out of the pronoun. So these are those connectors made out of the pronoun, or the short form of the personal pronoun, which can replace the non-existing to be verb. Same thing here. That's we have the word is in English, the to be verb. We don't have that in Syriac. We repeat a pronoun. So henon means they. Enon would take the place of are. Henon gawre ennun, they are men. Or you could just say gawre ennun. Henin, they feminine. Nishe, which means women, enin. Atton, gawretun, you are men. Aten and ten, chnan and nan. Like we could say the word Christians, mshichaye nan. We are Christians. So this is used not in the sense of the agent, the taker of action, but to connect a noun to a self. We'll see examples of it, and hopefully we can work this from both ends. And then we also have chlapshma heswise. The word suisse means something that is jammed together. And you'll see this, remember last lesson we had the bedul letters, beth, dalet, waw, lamet, so we go bemdita, he's in the city. But what if you don't want to say bemdita, but inside of her referring to the city? You would say, instead of bemdita, bah. Or you could say, he's inside the city, and you want to double emphasize it, bah bemdita, bah, he's inside of her, bemdita, inside the city. That's a common Syriac reduplication that happens. He shot him with the gun, topa. He killed him. Qatle bih bah topa. He killed him with it. Bih. Give it to him. So that instead of a beth, it would be a lamed. Le. Give it to her. La. I gave it to you. Lach. I gave it to you and you're a girl. Lich. What are the faith is inside of me. Be. Plural. Bahon. Behen. Bahon. Bechen. Ban. Now Arayathinal does something which I found. I didn't find confusing because I already knew these things by the time I got a hold of his grammar book, but something that I wouldn't have done it the way he did it. He, for some reason this is upside down scanned. He uses the idea of declension as if this was Latin or Greek or Russian, so that he takes what I would do is just introduce the abdul like we did last time, be, in with, the being of, which it doesn't do this thing with the pronouns, le, towards, wa, and again that doesn't. So it's really beth and dalet, and prepositions like deal, meaning mine. So you know how the dalet, like melkad ara, d, is used to say the word of. Well, kind of reminds you of Spanish, de, Spanish, right? So you really have prepositions and then the lemet and the beth, like you see here. Well, he arranges them like declensions, and they certainly can work that way. I just didn't know it had to be that complicated. So if it's in, by, or with me, it would be. But if it's towards me or to me, it would be li. So you see, this is the pronoun, is that yud khwasa. I'm sorry, it's not a yud khwasa, it's just the khwasa. Dil, so dallet khwasa lamet, just there without that yud, is a preposition denoting possession. It needs to have a pronoun. So dil would be mine. Like if someone said melpan with a silent yud at the end, dil with a silent yud, it would let the hearer know that he's saying my teacher. In just denoting, he calls it the nominative vocative, but so the plural, khnan, dilan, ours, lan, to us, ban, by us, with us. Second person, thou would be, of course, at. For a girl, we put a silent yud at the end. Dilach, thine, thy. Dilich, for a female. Dilach, to thee, or just as thou art the receiver of an action. Lich, feminine. Who, sorry. So this is with the masculine plural. Dilchon, y'alls. Ilchon, unto you. B'chon, in you, by you. In you dwells the spirit. B'chon amr. If it's a group of female, b'chen amr. He went to y'all, you're female. L'chen. This is his book, Tawa Dile. This is her book, Tawa Dila. He gave it to her, to him. He gave it le. He gave it to her, la. Notice that dot over the he. We also have it in my paradigm, that dot over the he. It's very important. In East Syriac scripts, you will see it more commonly, a little bit more bold, like I just made it here. That is signifying that it's feminine pronoun, because if we write without vowels, that becomes essential. Henun, which just means them, masculine. Henin, meaning the feminine version. Dilhon, theirs. Ilhon, unto them. Bahon, by them. Same thing, henin, dilhen. But that's how Arayathinal lays it out. And since this is something you might reference, I figured to go through it. Let's look at an example. Ilana, so she is the tree, because it's not Ilana u, but Ilana the khayye of lives. Inna, I, zakkay, or zakhay, na, I am innocent. Inna na, like I said, it can be inna Maryana, would be also inna na Marya. Inna apra na, I am apra, which is dust, and qatma, and ashes. So we have our pronouns here. Again, you can go to my blog post and get those charts, and I hope all that works out well. It's the first time I'm trying to put my charts on the blog, and that they can be a way of looking at them, and try to have them in an HTML format so you can cut and paste and manipulate them as you like for reference. I also went through the word deal, which is mine, which is just these three words, deal, and then they get those pronouns just like they were here. So deal, his, dila, with that at the end, hers, dilach, so you see deal, and then the skapa cap, which gets softened, that ach gets added to the end. Dilach, hers, dila, sorry, this one goes left to right, dile, his, dila, hers, dilach, yours, dilich, and this is a silent yud. It's just a visual reminder that it's female ginsa. Dil, mine, dilhon, theirs, dilhen, feminine, theirs, dilhon, theirs, dilchen, theirs, dilan, ours. Now, Arayathinal adds a little bit of the verb in here, and I hope he doesn't add a little bit too much. I understand why he does that, and I'm going to start with transliteration. We have 3 letter roots in Syriac, so this has to do with writing, this has to do with killing, this has to do with doing, this has to do with saying, that's an alep, this has to do with going up. Those are the 3 letters you look up in the dictionary. So we're going to just look at, but those are just roots, right? Those don't mean anything. There's just the 3 letters that represent only what the action is, not who's doing it, how it's being done. It's not even an infinitive. I can't do this with Indo-European languages. You do this with Semitic languages. So if I said kthao, it would mean he wrote. Qtal, he killed. Ba'al, he did. Amar, he said. Sliq, he went up. If I said nichthu, it means he will kill. Niqtul, he will kill, etc. But this is just the 3 letters that you find in dictionary. So kap, tau, beth, qop, tet, lemed, pe'ai, lemed, alet, mim, resh, samket, lemed, qop. And usually kthao is used because every one of those letters are one of the letters that can be softened, the magad, kfath letters. And so in our charts, we'll be able to see what's going on with softening. Arayathinal, nicely, and this is a good way of doing it, only gives us the 3rd masculine. So he did it. And in this case, what we're actually going to say is he wrote. And Arayathinal has us learn in this chapter, this lesson 5, the 3rd feminine, which is she wrote. So, sticking with the 3rd masculine, he wrote, we take our root of kthao, and we have a root vowel of ptacha. Now, because kap and tau have a schwa in between the 2 of them, which means a half vowel, a vowel that is not written. So let's look at the Syriac of this, because that may help us. I'm going to restate what I just said with Syriac letters. We have kap, tau, beth, and then we're going to have to add a ptacha on the 2nd letter. So it could, if it was qtal, it would be on the ta. And what is that going to force us to do? Well, between kap and tau, it's not, it's kthao. So there's a between the kth, right? Kth, kthao. It's not not enough to be a zlama, but there's a half zlama right in here, which softens the tau. Well, I can't show that because my mark that would show softening, you see that ptacha, it prevents it. So if I use the West Syriac vowel, I could go like this, and that would show ktha, right? Kthau it will be. But since in Syriac, the ptacha takes its spot, I just have to know it's there by the rule, that the skap is softening that tau. So this skap is softening that tau, and let's soften the tau in our transliterated scheme. And remove that. Now that ptacha on the beth, there's nothing coming after the syllable. The beth is not doubled, so it gets to remain a nice soft. It gets to become softened by the ptacha. It becomes kthau, and so this becomes kthau. So if you have a different root like pe resh qop, which has to do with salvation, we would put after the second letter resh ptacha prak, he saved. If you have the word to do awad, which is I bet that it's not awad yet, it has to take its same thing up ptacha right here, awad. If we have now usually these are with the ptacha are verbs that X does to Y, so they're transitive. It means that there's a transition of action. When you write, the writing happens onto a piece of paper. When you save, you're saving someone. When you're doing a task. But some verbs are intransitive, which means you're doing it to yourself, frankly. For instance, if something is darkening, like the sky is darkening, or his mind was darkening, it would be the chet, sheen, cap. And so we wouldn't say shach, but we say shich. It gets a short zlama. And same thing, that short zlama will soften the cap. And we can use the Latin letter version. We have chet, we have sheen, zlama, and a softened chet, shech. So notice that usually transitive have an A or an E. Those are the only root vowels you will have ever on this. And finally, let's go. I said we were going to do she wrote. So far we've done kthau, he wrote. Let's do she wrote. So we'll pull this down here. Get rid of these. We have to take our, I think I'll do it in Syriac. Let's do transliteration first. So we'll take thou. Oh. Sorry, when I use both Syriac and the Society of Biblical Languages transliteration, my vowels get, my muscle memory gets all fried. So that was he wrote, kthau. That is our root. That's what we start pretty much everything with in Syriac. And then we're going to have to add to it, to feminize it, oth. I like to use these just so that I don't fry out the fact that I'm using multidirectionality. So I take kthau, there's my root, and kthau, he wrote, and then I'm going to have to add to he wrote the ending that's proper to a woman who wrote. So that's a, th. wait a second. There, I made it easier for myself. So I'm adding a ptacha tau, auth. You take tau and you add the auth. So what that does is it brings up the Syriac vowel deletion rule, and you can read about it in Takamitsu Muraoka Classical Syriac, a basic grammar with Christomathy, which is not a basic grammar. It's a pretty good reference grammar. It's really good if you like to nerd out. And on page 5, which is section 6, he has the vowel deletion rule that says that the three short vowels, tacha, zlama, and the O sound, when they have an unaccented open syllable, are deleted. Okay, well, you can look them up. I'll do this a bit more simple. When you have a short vowel, so that's and they're doubled, so let's see what happens if we add kthau, he wrote, and auth, the ending we have to say she wrote. We have, this isn't a syllable, because even though there's a mini vowel sound between kap and tau, it doesn't count as a syllable. It's just a kith. Kith, thaw, kthaw. Ooh, that's one syllable, kthau. Why? There's one vowel. It's a short vowel, and these three short vowels, a, e, and o, always have to have a letter that they land on. Sometimes o can be turned long to avoid that, but not usually. So here we have kthau, there's a syllable, and you can't have the syllable of auth. That's a short a. It's not the one with the bar on top, the zlama. So something has to be deleted, because this is grammatical now, auth, right? It's telling us it's feminine. It's the ending for she wrote is that auth, right? It's this. Usually, especially East Syriac, we add 2 dots at the bottom, auth. Because that, we're going to have to delete a vowel. So that becomes this a, it goes back and becomes Aslama Pshika. So we'll do that in Syriac. You have kthau, plus you have to add auth. Now you can see how there's this, it's like kthau, auth. Well, that wouldn't be anymore. Now that ktha, right, this right here, this has to stay, because that's telling me that's a woman who wrote it. So this vowel goes away. It doesn't just go away, it jumps backwards, and it becomes a short e. It becomes kith, bath. The big point to know is that when you have that auth ending, it's she wrote. So let's get through some sentences. Here's the vocabulary. Ach, like. Ach. Asya, doctor. Atona. Asya ach atona. The doctor is like a furnace. Maroya. Guba. A dungeon. Guba. Gumasa. Pit. Gumasa. Gabbara. So notice that it's not gawara, but the beth is doubled because you have the ptacha. And that noon is not disappeared with the line on top. It is neural. So why we say it, it's the cow sounds. These are neurals. In Syriac, the noon, it really has this, like Greek does this more with meme and the M and L sound. But gabara, what that happens here is it's doubling the beth. So it's basically assimilating the beth into a second consonant. So it goes gab and bara. We don't say ga bara, ga bara. If I said to someone, oh araba ga bara, He is very gabara. They would not understand me in modern Syriac, which is pronouncing it just like classical. But if I said he is gabbara, there's two B's I just made. Gabbara, gabbara, they would. Gabbara, gabbare. The giants in Genesis 6 are the gabbare. The nach, he dawned. So like nach yoma, the day gone. Nach yoma badawra, the day dawned in the field, in the desert. Dawra. Dara, generation. Darahana, this generation. Andra, the arm. Pach, he returned. Zachotha, victory. Chakima, wise, like the famous book of Achiqar, Chakima. How many caps are here? Hear me. Chakima, Chakima, Chakima. There's double, they have to be. Cheshocha, darkness. Chataita, chrew. So notice that chraw. Notice the ptacha. Chet, resh, beth. Those three, they have to do with destruction, right? But if we use the ptacha on the resh, it's I destroyed something else. Chraw. So, what happened to dinner? I destroyed it, right? Let me say she destroyed it. Khirbath, uth, ending for female. He destroyed it. Chraw. But it itself was destroyed. Chrew. I'm not going to tell you who did it. Dinner was just chrew. It was just destroyed. Dwa. That silent between them. So if we were not softening, we would say ba. But it's dwa. He was drowned. Yamma, two memes. In the plural, yamme. So we actually see them there, and we see them here too if you have Syriac eyes that go yud ptacha mim, mim zdama. Yamma. We would not do the hugaya yud ptacha mim skapa. That would be wrong. Yud ptacha mim, mim skapa. Yausha. So what is the root of dryness? It's yoth beth shin. But the second gets softened. Yausha. Yaraitha, the canopy. Yarthutha, Yulpana, Kepa. And the Western doesn't use that long slama, but uses what we would call it as a arwasa. Kepa dashrara, the rock of truth. Kepa dashrara. Karoze, Krowe, the cherubim, and Karma is a vineyard, a karma. Karoza, and what's the plural? Karoze. Karoza, Karoze, Luqa, La'alam, forever, and to the world, literally. La'alam, Mettol, because, on account of. Makki khutha, Maksanutha, Maubid. So it just means something is destroyed. And it's kind of used on its own. Moshe, Milcha, Melkutha, Min. Eastern text always just put the big dot under the meme. And the Western will use the zlama. Min, right, from. We can add our chlapsh meswis, our attached pronouns. Menach, minne, min, with a silent yud, from me. Min, chon, from y'all. Nata, portion. Mar, the famous Syriac mar, like Mar Ishaq, Mar Awa, Mar Yosef. Melkam Shicha, the king, the Messiah, Christ the King. Melkam Shicha, Nuhra, Natora, Npal, he fell. Nausha, so that is like pronounced like with a W. Maybe in some books it looks like it's Nefsha. You would sound silly if you said Nefsha. Nausha, Naushe, So there's the nausha, the self. And if you add those pronouns that we learned in this chapter, you could say his own self. Naushe, you could say our collective soul of man. Naushan, Noshon, their soul. Sawra, hope. Silqath. So what would it be? He ascended. Christ ascended, right? We would cut off that ptacha and tau. Notice those two hard big dots there. That's an East Syriac convention. If I were to write, I wouldn't use any dots on this word other than those two, because when I see those at the end of a word, I know she did it. So it becomes silqath. I know it's going to be that part of the ath attached pronoun. But if I want to remove that, I have removed the ptacha, the ta with the two dots, telling me that ptacha is there. Cut it off. And then this goes back to being sliq. He went up. Sliq isha. Jesus went up to heaven. Sliq isha lishmaya. But she went up. She went up to the mountain. Silqath al-Tora. Sana. Sana. An enemy. It literally means a hater. Aida, a feast. Awar, Ubba, Al, Mat. Amma, double meme. Amma wa amme. So it's like Israel and the Gentiles. Amma wa amme. Raq, Shin, Ashina, Bla. In Aprim Pla'be. Ephraim Pla'be Patros. Ephraim met Peter. Pla'be. Baga'be. Purqana. Kach. Like the salt. Kach became insipid. Pleg. So he divided. Prach. Par'on, Sawyana, Qrew, Ruha the Quddisha, Rabba, Rechew, he mounted, Rechew, like on a horse. So, Shukana, Shallit, or Shallit, Shma, name like Chlab Shma, Shpar. Sharira, Sharirait, Bashrara, Tochlana, Tiawutha, Trisa. So let's do the exercises. Shukhalach alaha. Glory to thee, God. Shukhalach baroya. Glory to thee, Creator. Shukhalach, glory to thee, Melikam Shicha, Christ the King. Atum Shicha. So I said this at the beginning of lesson. If you want to say you are Christ, you could also say Atum Shichat, you are the Messiah. But it's common because we don't say Atat to use the third person masculine shortened, like in place of the to be verb version of the pronoun. For the second person singulars. So atum shicha. At you, he is. Here we're using the is from he. You is the Christ. Atum shicha. I hope I made sense. Now we're going to say it for the female. At I tuchlan, my hope. So that you're the silent, my hope. Atte tuchlan. So atu for a man, atte. It's very common because I think it's just psychology of saying you are. Atu atte. Khnan, we are. Khnan innun. Amid alaha, the people of God. Who, you. So we don't usually say this. If you just cut this out right here, who, and you add u, it would be who-u. And I think it's just the silliness of saying who-u. You won't say like you are, John. Who-u. Yochanan. We say who you. This is the form of combining who and u. He and the correspondent version for is who you. So this is something you just memorize. Who you. He is. Who you sawran, who you tukhlanan. He is hope. He is our confidence. Tau kab lamet is to confide in something. Tau kab lamet. Simket beth resh. So be swar, like thou, swar. Tkhal, to hope. Simket beth resh, it has to do with waiting, expecting, hoping. If it works for you to think in roots, that's why I'm saying this. Arayathinal is not really going in that method. I do. Sharirayith, in truth. So shrara is truth. Sharirayith is the abstract of truthfulness. Sharirayith maryaw, the Lord, and this is mar, the Lord, ya, as the first two letters of the tetragrammaton. U, right? That u, like we had a tu. The Lord is l'alam, unto the world, unto the ages, is forever. Truly the Lord is eternal. Sharirayit Marya l'alam. Marya awad shmeya wara'a. The Lord made shmeya wara'a. Attu malkam sheikha. Slotha silqath. She went up. Slotha, my prayer. Slotha silqath min yamma, o min guba, o min atona. I'm going to start. I know you have the translations available, and so I'm going to go through it just in Syriac because I think that could be more helpful as you have it, and I'll try to do it more slowly so that you can have time to look up back and forth between the exercise key, which is the third book of Arayathinal, and the screen where I'm reading it. Slotha, so I'll repeat with thine. Slotha silqath min yamma min guba wa min athona. Atton ennun gabbare. Atton ennun gabbare. Attu nuhra sharira. Attu nuhra sharira. Edaw rabba. Dathyautha dam'a ennen. So Ayad is the feast. Edaw. Notice that this long A and this U, I combined them into an AW, an aw. And that's what we do. Edaw. So it is the feast. Rabba, the great one. Tiawuta. But we don't know what it is until so it is the great feast of repentance. But what is it? Here it gives it to us. Dam'a ennen. So the tears, they are. So, as Master Yoda would say, feast is great of repentance, tears are. Hu yu bashrara paroqid alma. Hu yu bashrara paroqid alma. Attu saur utukhlan ashina. Attu saur utukhlan ashina. Nakhnura b'cheshocha. I think there's a mistake here. Latrise. It's gotta be that. Latrise means the true ones. Nura sharira latrise. Yeah, light dawn to the righteous in darkness, yeah. The true ones, I said, the righteous. That's a good translation. I cheated and looked at Arayathinal there. Slothed mushe makichuthe yamma pilavath. The prayer, the slotha, the Moshe, the prayer of Moses, umakichuthe, and his makichut. So makichuta, you would cut off the skapa alab at the end, and you'd replace it with the chlapsh masuisa. Makichute yamma pil gath. So usually the feminine, where we're used to saying the central one like kthau as hard, now it becomes soft. So it becomes kit bath pil gath, because there's no longer a vowel from the lamet to the gemel. So it's two syllables that are solid syllables. Pil and gath. Pilgath. like she gave, bath, kith, bath. So the prayer of Moses and his his humility divided Yamma, the sea. Wa'bar, and they crossed. So it's the word u and awar. All you see, this right here, this is enough. This right here is awar, and you're just saying and. And because there's no zo'a, there's no vowel on I, you have to use awa, not u. So it's awar, wa'war, ya amma, the people, watwa'a, Para'on, and tawa'a, he drowned Para'on, Pharaoh. Awadi'innun karuze, he made of them karoze, awadi'innun karuze. Khattaita qarbathlach, so a sinful woman. Ta ending is feminine. So it's not qraw. Qraw would be with abtaq on the resh. Qraw, he drew near. It's qarbath. He drew near, she drew near. Khattaita, the sinful woman drew near. Allah, to you. Nisbath, and I would say winsbath, and she took. Nisbath, minnach shukana, salvation. Maryaw, badarat zadiqe. Maryaw, badarat zadiqe. So, I kind of exaggerate. I'll get faster as we get into some more text, but the first 3-4 chapters, just try to get through the video, and if you can follow, you're doing great, because there's so much basic text in it. Maryaw b'darat zadiqe. Of course, I would just normally say Maryaw b'darat zadiqe, Maryaw b'darat zadiqe, Maryaw b'darat zadiqe, like that. So you can hear that I am exaggerating. Yartuth shaprathli, my inheritance was pleasing unto me. Yartuth shaprathli. The Maryai Malkutha, of the Lord is the kingdom. Sloth, L'ub, Hibkath. So, sloth, my prayer, L'ub, to my breast, like the bosom of Abraham is Abbad, Abraham. Sloth to my to my breast. Hibkath, to return. HPK. Hepekap is to do with returning. Pach. Inna na alaha alahach. I am Innana Allah, the God, alahach, thy God. Mtach, to spread out. Shmeyach yar'aitha. The yar'aitha is the canopy. Chshach. So we had the word cheshocha, darkness. This is chshach. It went dark. Nuhran, the light went dark. Pik chath, it went flavorless. Milcha, the salt. Mat, it just went meaningless, like it's gone, obscure. There, that's a good word. I keep trying to think. Mat yulpana, the teaching became senseless. Chriw, it was ruined, and this is in the sense of corrupted. It's not chraw, to ruin something else, but it itself became just in a state of corruption. It itself just like spoiled. Karma, the vineyard. Erqath, she fled. Who fled? Maksanutha. So that ta ending, and Maksanutha says it's a female. So reproof, correction, fled away. So I'll take it one more time. Shekh Nuhra, Pikhath Milcha, Mat Yulpana, Chriw Karma, Irqath Maksanutha. And there is a social media post in there for you. So, exercise 2B, and these ones I'm going to just read out of the exercise book itself. It's just so you hear them read and you can cross-reference and figure out what they're saying. I'll leave these to be yours to figure out. Use, of course, comments if I need to provide more or if I can go faster. As I said, these I will just read. Attu sawr. إنه برخ أتون إنن كيبي ضورا هو مريا آلاهن بخ يم اليوشا أتو آلاها ملك هو ملك رب الكل أرعى أتو صور ومناث بأرعد خيه إش ناث علين طيبوثه مرياو يرثوثخ أتو نهرا شعريرا ودزع خوثا بذراعه بغعث بخن روخذ قدشا أسيت خكيمة مرلوقة هو موبد نوش بسوياني أتون إنو نهر دعلمة إنانا نهر شعريرة إنانا أرخى وخية وشرارة هو كيبها دشرارة مريو برقانا تبالم قماسا دعوت مريو تخلاني رخيو على كروة وبرخ هو يشلط العمة برق إنون مطوشمه. So thank you very much. I hope this was useful and helpful. Subscribe, turn on notifications, use the comment to give me more direction. The first couple lessons of this, really, it's about those exercises at the end. Again, if you're doing this and find it useful, I would invest in the printed copies of the books, or just print off some pages to get you started. That may be better because you can write on them, this becomes less confusing as we go on. The first several chapters, you want to just get enough that you're following along, and this is something in between actually a natural and a traditional approach in my mind, because the amount of information, I feel like the mind does that, which the natural approach does. And with this chapter especially, I would come back to it a few times, because it's got those pronouns and some concepts in it that just get repeated all the time. So thank you, God bless, take care,